It's great to be able to have time with you today. Thank you so much for joining me as we get into the details about Energy Enhancer. Energy Enhancer was our very first product. So a little bit about the history behind this. At the time, LifeWave had not even been born yet. I had owned a company with a few other people, and we were designing and developing survival equipment for the US Navy through government contractors. And I had developed a new type of emergency oxygen supply. So when there's an emergency on a submarine and the nuclear reactor needs to get taken offline, they go to a backup system of generating oxygen. And this involves, believe it or not, burning candles. Now, this is a special type of candle called a chlorate candle. And when you burn this candle, it gives off oxygen. So I was sitting in a meeting at a branch of General Dynamics called Electric Boat. And I happened to make the comment that I couldn't believe on a $1 billion sub that they were burning candles in an emergency. That seemed absolutely absurd to me. So the person that was running the meeting said, well, if you can think of something better, then go ahead. So I did. 4 weeks later, I came up with something they considered to be an impossible oxygen supply. It was a device about the size of a can of Coke that could give somebody several hours worth of oxygen to breathe. And I got invited into special projects. And I was invited to see if we could improve the energy and stamina of, well, actually, that was the direction that I took. To say it more properly, I was invited to see if I could make a contribution to a mini-sub program. The crew of the mini-sub were Navy SEALs, and I wanted to see what we could do to improve their survivability. So at the time, people were relying on amphetamines, caffeine, pep pills to improve energy. And I thought maybe this is an opportunity to take a better way of doing this. So I turned ultimately to light therapy. So let's go ahead and get started and look at the basis for light therapy, the connection between light and the human body, and some of the clinical studies that we've done to support the safety and the efficacy of these products. And of course, what's always the most important thing, how can you benefit in your everyday life from using this technology and this product? So let's go ahead and get started. Here is our Energy Enhancer product as it stands today. Still the same great product that was in development 20 years ago and still as valuable today as it was back then. For me personally, in case you're wondering, I still use Energy Enhancer patches daily. I love the benefits. And in fact, I even use 2 sets of energy patches, one on the lower torso and one on the upper torso. And there's a variety of reasons for that. But if you go to our product page, you can simply see that the claims that we make about Energy Enhancer are that it increases energy and endurance, that it's very good for supporting strength, stamina, and an overall fitness routine. So, of course, we have to have proof to back up those claims. So let's take a look at that. Now, because Energy Enhancer was our very first product, these studies go back pretty far. We have studies back in 2003, 2004, and 2005. Probably the newest study we would have on energy patches were back in 2010. And of course, we've focused on other products since then. But this is a study that we did with Dr. Homer Nazaran, a biomedical engineer who at the time was at the University of Texas in El Paso, a phenomenal person. And Dr. Nazaran assisted us with quite a few studies at LifeWave. This one on the energy patches were performed with a technique called heart rate variability. Now, HRV, as it's known, is looking at the muscle contractions in the heart and the ratio between the low frequency and high frequency muscle contractions in the heart. So Dr. Nazaran was very excited about the results because he's indicating here in this paper for the first time, they're presenting the spectral features as it relates to HRV signals in healthy individuals. So the goal of this study was not to see if we could treat any type of disease or medical condition. We simply wanted to say if we took individuals that are generally healthy, could generally healthy people expect to see an improvement in heart rate variability? And the answer is yes. So we're just going to scroll down. You can read through this study. It is posted to our website, but look at this. Based on these preliminary observations, it could be concluded that during both rest and after only 5 minutes of exercise, the energy patches enhanced the relaxation level as they reduced the ratio between low frequency and high frequency muscle contractions. And Dr. Nazaran indicates that this is a very desirable effect. And so on and so forth. So again, we have a lot of information to cover today, so we're not going to get into any one study in huge detail. But the important thing is that we can do a bioelectrical measure after placing the energy patches on the body, and within only 5 minutes, we can detect beneficial physiological effects. Now, the question is, how are the energy patches working this way? So we know that our products are light therapy products. You apply them to the surface of the skin, and they stimulate the skin with very low levels of light. And our patches are going to provide a host of general wellness benefits. But how is that exactly improving energy, stamina, physical performance, improving and supporting the health of the heart? Well, let's turn towards a world authority in this field. His name is Dr. Michael Hamblin, and he is at Harvard. And to my knowledge, Dr. Hamblin has accumulated the most number of published studies on photobiomodulation and low-level light therapy. So this study is posted in the science section of the website, so you can check it out. But I wanted to scroll down on his paper here and show you an important observation. And let's see, I want to make sure I don't lose my space here. Here it is. Okay, finally, a review shows that a large number of papers that have been investigated for photobiomodulation show an increase in muscle performance in humans. Okay, this is going to become important later on to our analysis. Many of these studies have been conducted in athletes, and basically it's showing that when the body is stimulated with different wavelengths of light, we can get reduced muscle damage after exercise and improvements in overall athletic training. So here's an independent reference that light therapy can be used to improve physical performance. Now, the mechanism, by the way, that shows up in the literature is that when you stimulate the surface of the skin with low levels of light, it will lead to an increase of cytochrome C oxidase. So cytochrome C oxidase is part of the electron transport chain, and this is part of how the mitochondria in our cell makes energy. So the mitochondria is an organelle in our cells and is responsible for producing ATP and other molecules that are energy carriers like FAD and NAD. So what's important about this is that now we can see a direct link between how light will improve the biochemistry of the cell and how this leads to improvements in energy, and that leads to improvements in athletic performance. And really, we can think of athletic performance as contributing to just everything that we do during the day. You don't have to be engaged in an athletic endeavor to benefit from more energy. Now, something else that we should touch on today is this concept that we are beings of light. For thousands of years in Eastern medicine, this was always thought of as something which was a spiritual concept, this was really relegated to mysticism and the occult, which just simply means, of course, secret knowledge. But as it turns out, the mystics of old were quite correct that we are beings of light. And I love this, that we have a connection to the spiritual world as physical beings. And we can certainly prove this. So what this means is that if we take a person and we put them in a room that's completely dark, we can use an infrared camera. You might know this as night vision. And we can also use what's called a photomultiplier tube. And very clearly, we can record that there is heat coming off the body, and this is infrared light, so just below the visible spectra, but there are also visible wavelengths of light coming off of the human body. This study was done in Japan, by the way. There's also been very good research that came out of Germany by Dr. Fritz Popp and others, James Oshman, Carl Merritt. And again, essentially, this work proves that our bodies emit light and that there is an intimate connection between the light emissions and our overall health. And this is important for us to know because obviously from our perspective, we can use light to improve our health, but there's also a connection of how light emission from the body changes as we age. So in other words, we have a pathway now in understanding this where we can reverse part of the aging process by using light. And this comes from an understanding of how that light emission changes in our body over time. So this is extraordinarily exciting. Now, we have performed somewhere in the neighborhood of about 90 clinical studies now on our products over the last 20 years. And this is a document which is posted in the science section of the website, and you can take a look at this. It gives a nice overview of the studies that we have done on the Energy Enhancer patches. If we go down to the bottom over here, you can see we have 17 studies just on Energy Enhancer. This one in particular we're going to be talking about today. You saw me scroll past. And yes, we in fact have done our own infrared studies on Energy Enhancer, and we've also done studies on biophoton emission, but more on that in a minute. Okay, so first let's talk about Dr. Dean Clark. And Dr. Clark had performed a number of clinical studies on our LifeWave patches, such as Energy, Eon, Glutathione. So a big thank you to Dr. Clark. And this one study in particular was done on 36 people. It was done back in 2005. And as a matter of fact, Dr. Clark spoke at our very first conference in Las Vegas about this. So in any case, he was doing studies with a very advanced medical infrared imaging system. Back at that time, the camera cost $85,000 and was specifically designed for medical analysis. And what Dr. Clark was finding was that in as little as 5 minutes of applying the energy patches to the body, there was an immediate cooling effect. With our Eon patch, he would do analysis over a period of 20 minutes, and we would see, by comparing that to blood tests, very dramatic reductions in inflammation. So this is important. When we have overheating in the body, which would show up as increase in inflammation, this, of course, can contribute to premature aging and autoimmune disorders. So we want to keep inflammation in check. Little bit of inflammation is good because it tears down old tissue that we need to get rid of, but we don't want to get into a condition where the inflammation is not cleared out. So this is remarkable scientific evidence which shows with this infrared technique that within minutes of applying the energy patches, we see this immediate cooling effect. So this represents a calming of the autonomic nervous system and a balancing of the flow of bioelectrical energy through the body. So in this respect, the results of this study, where we were demonstrating results within 5 minutes, is very consistent with the clinical study performed by Dr. Nazaran, where he shows that within 5 minutes, we have beneficial changes in the function of the muscle contractions in the heart. Now that's all well and good. We can improve the heart. We can induce cooling effects with energy patches, but you're all here today to find out how can you improve your energy levels? How can you have constant, stable levels of energy throughout the day? So here we have a study performed by Dr. Frank Schallenberger. I love Dr. Schallenberger's work, by the way. If you're not familiar with who he is, he's one of the world authorities in ozone therapy. And as our community knows, I will very frequently speak about the benefits of ozone therapy in the treatment of disease. And Dr. Schallenberger is an authority on this subject. So we had the privilege of working with Dr. Schallenberger back in 2005. He spoke at our conference in Las Vegas that year. And the work that he did in this pilot study was to look at, is there a scientific basis for claiming that the LifeWave patches improve energy levels? So in this particular study, we can jump down to the conclusions, but I wanted to show you a few parts here. First thing, this is a study with 30 people. Today, when we do a study, the FDA, back then the FDA wanted to see a study with a minimum of 20 people. Since that time, they've increased this to about 40 people. So 30 people today would be a really nice size pilot. And we did, in fact, hit statistical significance. One thing that's important is that this test was conducted with an FDA-approved pulmonary gas analyzer. So in other words, there's going to be a measurement of gases that are inhaled and exhaled. And by this, we can look at glucose metabolism and fatty acid metabolism. So we can see whether or not the body is, in fact, burning more fat for energy. And again, this is posted on our website. So if we look at the statistical analysis here, there is a significant difference in maximal aerobic work. There's a statistical significant difference in total resting ATP, significant differences in effective energy patches, over here. And in any case, the results, application of LifeWave Energy Enhancer patch produced a significant increase over placebo in maximum aerobic ATP. So of course, ATP is the basic unit of measurement. So what we're demonstrating here is that, yes, when we claim that the energy patches increase energy by increasing fat burning, and they do that by stimulating the skin with light, we have scientific studies that demonstrate that. Now, what about this whole subject of light emission? One of the things that's incredibly interesting is the connection between light emission and the chemistry of the body, and also how this changes over time. So here's a very simple way of understanding this concept. When we're born, our cells are essentially perfect. They function in an optimal way. As we age, the cells will begin to shrink. So most people know and accept that as we age, we become more and more dehydrated. The amount of water in our body as a percentage decreases. So this is having an adverse effect on our cells. The cells begin to shrink. And as a result, our cells go from a state of perfection to imperfection. We go from a state of coherence to a state of incoherence. And as a result, the cells literally begin to leak light. And this isn't a good thing because we depend on this light coherence to orchestrate the communications within our cells and the environment that our cells live in. So one of the things that we wanted to see with this study is how do the energy patches affect the light emission of the cell, if at all? So this was an initial investigation into that subject. Now, I showed you a picture a little bit earlier where we take a person and we put them into a dark room. And in this particular study, the protocol is a little different. We're only going to put a person's hand into a box that's completely dark. Then a photomultiplier tube is going to record the light emission that is coming off of the hand. And then, of course, we can record what is going to happen before and after. So this was an enormous amount of data that was gathered. Sorry for scrolling through this so quickly. Let's see if I can get to the correct page. Okay. Statistically significant results were obtained, strongly indicating that the energy enhancer patches do generate measurable changes in both biophoton emission intensities and the body's energetic condition. Now, one thing that I want to bring up with this is that we had done a separate study where we looked at the size of the cell and correlated it with this data. We did this after this study was performed. And we looked at the cell capacitance and the phase angle. These are measures of the health and the integrity of the cell. And we found that within 20 to 30 minutes of using the patches, the cell capacitance increased. So the cell became bigger by about 15%. And the phase angle improved. And this is a measure of the body's ability to take in nutrients and eliminate toxins. So the study design for this study wasn't perfect, but we did demonstrate that there were beneficial effects. One thing that came up in this study is that there was an individual who participated that was unhealthy, and they did not have a beneficial effect with the energy enhancer. Later on, of course, what we learned was that this was a detox reaction. So fats in the body will hold on to toxins. As soon as you mobilize those fats, the toxins are released and the person can go through what we call a Herxheimer's reaction, a detox reaction, a healing crisis. So these are some of the things, of course, that we learned over time. But this was a successful outcome in this study because we're able to demonstrate, in fact, that the energy patches, again, influence the light emissions from the body and produce a very powerful anti-aging effect. Okay, now this was a study. Oh, by the way, I want to mention this study was done in conjunction with Dr. Gaetan Chevalier, who many of you know because he's been doing brain mapping studies on X39, extremely accomplished biomedical researcher and nuclear physicist, and Dr. Carl Merritt, who is very well known in the energy medicine community. So Dr. Tom Budzinski, he and his wife Helen performed a number of studies for us. Tom Budzinski was, unfortunately, we lost him a number of years ago, and he was very, very highly regarded in the field of biofeedback, and in fact wrote college textbooks on this subject. So he was considered an expert in this field. For those of you that are fans of aircraft, Dr. Budzinski designed the inertial guidance system on the SR-71 spy plane. Those of you that are fans of the X-Men movie will know the SR-71 as the X-Men plane. So Dr. Budzinski worked for, it was either Department of Defense or DARPA on those programs. But in any case, what we wanted to look at with this study was to find out when you place the energy patches on the body, did it produce a bioelectrical effect? So Dr. Nazaran, in the study that he published in the IEEE, saw initially, yes, we do get a bioelectrical effect within 5 minutes. Now we're going to use a different technique, and we're going to measure tissue conductivity with a different piece of equipment and see, will we also notice an effect? So again, we're going to scroll down here. Okay, this study found that indeed LifeWave patches do serve as a stimulus for the actions for which they were developed. That is, it's using light to stimulate the body and produce desirable effects. No adverse effects were recorded. So here again, we have a different technique that is being used, and it is demonstrating, yes, energy patches are producing bioelectrical effects in the body that are desirable with no adverse effects. All right, so all of that sounds great. We've learned a lot. Energy patches are going to improve the muscle contractions in the heart, so that might support the overall health of the heart. Nothing is entering the body. We're stimulating the skin with light. We're measuring very powerful anti-aging effects by seeing how stimulating the body with energy enhancer is going to improve the way our body uses light and produce this anti-aging effect. We showed with Dr. Schallenberger's study that when you use the energy patches, that it increases fat burning. Now, we also showed some preliminary information that the energy patches could improve human performance. And here is yet another study that we did with Dr. Lisa Tully. Dr. Tully has done many studies for LifeWave over the years. This was an investigational pilot study with 10 healthy people. And what we were showing, and I'll scroll down again to the bottom so you can see this. It shows that the patches produce a significant increase in flexibility, strength, and endurance in healthy humans. So that means that you place the energy patches on, we're not using any type of stimulants, we're improving health, vitality, anti-aging, we're elevating fat burning and improving strength, stamina, endurance, and flexibility. So with all of that said, Energy Enhancer is an extraordinarily powerful product and provides many benefits that most people don't really associate with an energy product. You know, when we think of things like caffeine, the Red Bulls and Starbucks and all of that, we think of this getting a burst of energy from a stimulant, but certainly we would never think of caffeine as a way of improving the health of the heart or being anti-aging. In fact, for many people, caffeine is just the opposite. It is, we know that stimulants will provide a stress on the body. So that's not entirely desirable. And if we're not watching our diet and keeping our antioxidant levels elevated, this is a real problem. So here we have a natural way of improving energy without the side effects and the undesirable effects of stimulants. And of course, we can also even get an anti-aging effect. I'm just going to go ahead and take a look at some questions. Now, there's going to be here, first I'm going to remind everyone that I am not a medical doctor. So any recommendations that I'm going to make, please consult with your healthcare practitioner first. I'm also not going to answer any type of questions when it comes to treating diseases with our products. We sell our products as general wellness devices, general wellness products, and we don't make any claims that our products will treat or cure any type of disease. In this case, we're selling our products to improve energy. Oh, here is an interesting question. What would be the role and support of energy patches during fasting? And which is the best synergy with other patches, SP6 and glutathione? Thank you so much for asking this question. It's really fascinating. Back in 2005, we had a family in Switzerland. They have a center for detoxification and fasting. They showed up at our one of our conferences, and they were, bear in mind, this is anecdotal, and they reported to me that they were finding that when people were fasting with the energy patches, they were able to hold on to more muscle mass during their fasting. This is something that we never pursued in a clinical study, but I think would be well worth it. If we could demonstrate that when people fasted, they held on to more muscle, there's obvious advantages there. For me personally, I have been practicing intermittent fasting, roughly 16 to 18 hours per day. And I regularly use the energy patches along with other things. So I certainly have found benefit with it personally. But I would look forward to seeing a study that would be done on this. In terms of what might be the best combination, I would say it really depends on the outcome. So in other words, I think you're quite correct that combining the energy patches with glutathione or SP6 could make sense. I think I would start with glutathione and energy enhancer first in an overall detox during a fast. You could make some arguments one way or the other, but I think that would be as good a place as any to start. Would one wear X39 as well as the energy patches? Well, again, an interesting question. So first, with X39, it is going to improve the metabolism and increase energy. So I would recommend that people start with X39 patch first, and then see if they would want to add the energy patches later. One of the things that I like wearing about the energy patches is that I can apply them to acupuncture points. I'm certainly a believer in acupuncture, and it's something that I have been participating in both reading and going to see acupuncturists over the years to learn as much as I can. And this is a very, very effective way of using the energy patches, applying them to acupuncture points so you can get some additional benefits from them. In terms of how many times per week you could wear the energy patches, that's really up to you. That's a personal choice. I would say just see how you feel and how you might benefit. Okay, let's say in a past recording, You said that there was a significant difference in wearing glutathione or carnosine 5 days compared to 7. So this was actually the glutathione patch. And we had done this study work with Dr. Sherry Greenberg. It was on electrointerstitial scanning. These studies are posted to the website, and we wanted to compare what would be better, 5 days or 7 days per week. We would have expected the results to have been the same. But surprisingly, what we found was that the results of using the patches 7 days per week was about twice as good as only 5. The conclusion that we came to, and this is a hypothesis, the hypothesis would be, and this would require further investigation, is that because this was done with the glutathione patch, because we're constantly being bombarded by toxins in the air we breathe and the food we eat, that we really need to be practicing an active detox daily. There was a study that came out about 2 weeks ago, and it showed that the average number of toxins in the body is around 100. And these are herbicides, pesticides, plastics. These things are accumulating in our body. I think we're doing a poll on social media, and we want to ask if how our members would feel about doing a webinar and training solely devoted to detoxification. But the bottom line is whether or not you're using the glutathione patch and combining that with other methods, which I would very much support, we need to be thinking about keeping our body as clean as possible, drinking lots of water, practicing different detox methods, eating organic, and so forth. What's the difference between carnosine and energy patches for the heart? Great question. So carnosine is an antioxidant. We've already seen how the energy patches work, and they produce their function biochemically by increasing energy production in the cell, and also through a bioelectrical effect. With carnosine, it's slightly different. We are still stimulating the skin and producing a bioelectrical effect, but in this case, we're increasing the amount of carnosine in the body. Carnosine as an antioxidant is going to be found in the heart, in the skeletal muscle, and in the brain. And we know that carnosine as an antioxidant can help to protect cardiac tissue. We've also seen through clinical studies that carnosine improves athletic performance. And again, not surprising because carnosine is found in the skeletal muscle and in cardiac muscle. So they definitely complement one another. So anyone that's interested in exercise, peak physical performance could benefit from both carnosine and energy enhancer. They work in different ways. So there's a question being asked, if a 50-year-old person has a heart condition, should they use energy patches? I think we've demonstrated in our studies that the energy patches are completely safe. However, we have not tested the energy patches or our other products for use as a treatment in medical conditions. So my opinion would be, in speaking with a medical doctor or practitioner, that the patches are safe, but they haven't been studied in this way. And so this would be up to the doctor to decide if they could be used or not. What are some other locations for the energy patch placements if someone isn't noticing anything? So this is interesting. So first thing is, what we find when we do tests is, of course, that the patches are going to function. If we're talking about our carnosine patch, many people wouldn't feel that going to work. You don't really feel the benefits right away of taking a vitamin pill. And this is the same with the patches. Many people won't feel the effects. So in any case, what can a person do? The first thing is, while the patches will really work anywhere, I would look more towards some other things. First, many people don't consume enough water, and dehydration is something that's going to limit the efficacy of patches because it limits tissue conductivity and the ability of our cells to produce energy. Another thing I would look at would be diet. In acupuncture, it's very well known that when people don't respond, it's because of deficiencies of potassium, magnesium, and calcium. It could be over 90% of the population may have potassium deficiencies. Maybe over 60% have magnesium deficiencies. So I would look at things in the diet that could increase potassium, such as bananas, potatoes, salmon, getting essential fatty acids like from avocados. That's also a good source of minerals. I would look at the electrolytes and water. But if you wanted to try other locations, really good location is down over here. It's called Large Intestine 4 in acupuncture, one of the most powerful points on the body. And as people are concerned about immune function today and immune response, this point is known as a very powerful point at supporting the health of the immune system. Where are the patch crystals resourced? Well, the crystals that are in the patches are something that we make. They're stereoisomers of amino acids and sugars. They're processed in a very specific way, and then they're deposited onto a polymer lattice so as to form crystals. They're in, obviously, a sealed plastic pouch so that when they're activated by your body heat, and that's why the patch is designed not to breathe, it seals in body heat. It'll just stimulate the skin with low levels of light. So these are completely natural and organic. Hey, David, where do you place your energy patches? You told us one high and one down on the body. Okay, so I will rotate the location of the patches. I'll always keep one set on the lower torso, one set on the upper torso. One of my favorite places to apply the patches are going to be on the bottom of the foot. So it'd be at what's called the kidney 1 acupuncture point, and it would be roughly right about there. Another place that I really like is stomach 36. Both kidney 1 and stomach 36 are very powerful acupuncture points. So I can go back and forth between those, but I'm always experimenting. On the upper torso, it would be the same thing. I might put them up over on my chest on the lung 1 points. Sometimes I'll just simply palpate. I'll look for a point that might be tender, and then I'll apply white on right, tan on left. Sometimes I'll put them up on my trapezius muscles. And again, I might just simply palpate, press down on those points, and look for a position that might be a little tender, and I'll apply it over there. So you don't need to know acupuncture necessarily. How does it help with weight loss and fat burning? According to our clinical studies, within 20 minutes of wearing the energy patches, they increase fat burning. A later study we did showed that it increases fat burning by 23%. So some people, when they use the energy patches, they will lose body fat. We don't make a claim for weight loss because we want to provide a holistic approach, meaning we want people to have a healthy diet, to exercise, drink water, get proper sleep, and use the energy patches as part of an overall health and wellness program. So the energy patches would be a support for an overall weight loss and health program. Can an 86-year-old use this patch? Yes. We haven't found any age group that can't benefit. My dad is 91 and he loves the patches. But I do very much appreciate your time today and taking an interest in our products. Very much appreciated.